So, like many people, my life is a study in contrasts. I grew up in London, um, very much brick and mortar in central London. But when I was a baby, we started going to a place along the Amalfi coastline called Positano. And when I got to be a little girl of about 5 and 6 there, my parents really just allowed my brother and my brother was 3 years older, to roam free. And in that process, we came to know Vali and Rudy, these gypsies who lived up in the mountains in a shepherd's hut. And we would spend the night in caves. And Vali was this remarkable woman. She was actually Australian. She had this flame of red hair that she brushed once a year. Her greatest passion in life was a red fox. She was surrounded by animals. I would spend many a happy day riding a pig called Ramana along the dusty trails. But she and Rudy and Vali filled my heart with enchantment. This sense that there was this way of living that was purely magical. And one of the greatest gifts that Vali gave me, she was very famous, actually. She was an artist, above all, an ecologist and a dancer. She'd lived in Paris. She knew Jean-Paul Sartre, Jean Cocteau, um, Django Reinhardt. You know, her artwork was bought by Mick Jagger. So there was this whole other persona to me, her. But for me, she was just this magical witch woman. And when she danced, it was as though her feet never touched the ground. She was like this moving flame. And one night she saw this me, about 6 years old, tubby, rather awkward. And she said, "Come here, darling." And so very timidly, I went onto the dance floor at the Bouc de Barca with her. And she said, "This is how you dance. You dance with the animals." She said, "Reach your arm up to stroke the neck of a giraffe and then the back of a donkey. Bend down to feed the chickens. Move and wag your tail like the dog, and you will dance." And in that moment, I felt completely at home in my own body, and I was graceful. And that began this deep love and need to dance with the wild, this understanding that when we are in relationship to the more than human world, something magical happens. Do I have 1 more minute? Or
Absolutely.
We're
in
so, the other thing that was so important to me was when we finally stopped going to Positano, which was heartbreaking. Vali gave me a locket that she had made of green and turquoise silks and sort of parchment covered lace. And she had put things in it that I was not allowed to see. That it was not a locket you could open. It was sewn closed. And she said, I must never, never look at it. So I carried that locket around as a talisman all of my days. I mean, it was in my pocket, and I would work it. I would feel it. I was constantly intrigued by what was inside of it. So it's getting a little threadbare, and I decide, well, it's threadbare. Not such a big sin to open it up, right? I'll put it under my pillow one more night, and in the morning I'll look at what's inside it. The morning comes, I look for my locket. I never find it, ever again. I search under the bed, I strip the sheets, I search everywhere, it disappears. Decades later, I meet Vali in London and I tell her the story. And she just looks at me and she says, "Of course, darling, you were never meant to know what was inside." And so what she put into my heart was this sense of mystery, that we are all living a deep and profound mystery. and that this sense of belonging isn't about knowing everything. It's about holding a place for magic. It's about putting roots deep into something material, um, mysterious and wild and unknowable. So that's my story.
Oh.
Um, so we've been talking about rootlessness, right? And so I think this separation from nature is really has made loose soil of us all. And a lot of the anxiety we feel, the ungroundedness, the fear and everything is because this primary relationship has been asunder. So I think this very nice naming of this vulnerability that I have was I was a raging alcoholic. So, and I drank from the age of 16 to 27. When I came to San Francisco, there was something about the beauty of the natural world that created such a deep tension within me, so much beauty outside, so much darkness inside. And quite honestly, I was going to go either way. But what happened for me is, thank goodness, I quit drinking. But that first week of not drinking, I was standing on the bluffs above the Pacific Ocean on a really, really stormy day. And I was so aware of being terrified and churned up inside. But as I looked out at the ocean, I thought, well, wow, it's totally in turmoil here. It's slapping against the rocks, it's churning, but it's incredibly strong. And then this thought went into my head was maybe I could kind of be a mess, but still be really strong too. And I tasted salt in my mouth, and I didn't know if it was my own tears or the ocean spray. And in that moment, I felt this complete oneness with this great body of water. So leap forward to when I'm studying poetry therapy. I became really interested in the nature poets, and again, that dance between the inner and outer wild. And that developed into beginning to work with these 5 archetypes that I work with of deserts and forests and oceans and rivers and mountains and grasslands, realizing that, and we have the archetypal genius sitting in the front row, so I say this very tentatively, Jean, is, this sense that these landscapes are in the earth, but they are in us too. And I had felt the ocean as part of me. And I was in time able to feel the deserts and the forests and all of the ancestral wisdom that these amazing beings brought to us as part of who I was. And that got me really interested, particularly on how we women, in reclaiming these earth archetypes, can almost bypass patriarchy because we are done with that. And instead of battling it like this all the time, we can just say, I am rerouting myself. I am replanting myself in the power of these amazing, amazing archetypes who I believe the universe is intelligent and has our back. And I think these archetypes have our back. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.